Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co-hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
In terms of not getting to the place that I want, even after everything that we have done in terms of time and work management, I think it's not in our hands, to be very honest. There were times when I did everything in my power and I actually didn't get to where I wanted to go. And yeah, it was difficult. But then I realized, honestly, there was nothing I could do with that. The process was right. I did everything in my hands, and I just go out with my friends. I tell them I tried everything in my hands. It didn't work out. The moment you went it out, it feels lighter. So I think that's one thing I usually do when things don't go my way.
Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters podcast. Episode 5 of season 2. How is this even possible? Time, I just don't know. Time is flying by. This week in our class, we focused on time, energy, and boundary management. Tiffany took students through kind of some really amazing strategies for managing your energy with things like strategic neglecting, trying not to hulk your way through the crazy days of the MBA program. She took students through things like the Eisenhower Matrix, which is learning about kind of what is urgent and what is important and how do we focus on those things. But what was really cool and unique was that was different for every person. A test may be more urgent and important, where other people's sleep could be more urgent and important. So really cool. Techniques like the Pomodoro technique and working in, which means kind of working in bursts and giving yourself little breaks and so much more. Today we have a very special guest today, a an exchange student from EdHec in France. Crazy. Harish Babu, thank you so much for joining us. And I think you are all ready to talk about things time, energy, and boundary management wise. So we can't wait to dive into this with you. So Harish, thank you so much for joining us. And the first question we have for you is, what's the story behind your decision to embark on an MBA journey right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me firstly. And my journey, it's a bit of a very long journey in different places at different times. To start off, I am a bachelor's in information technology engineer, and I worked for 2.5 years in the IT sector in different roles. In 1 year, I became the assistant TL, and life was good. But then I saw the trust that they had in me, and it actually got me back to my bachelor's days where I was actually leading and coordinating a lot of activities in college. And that's when I kind of realized people have the trust in me for managerial roles as well. So I wanted to pursue that in equal amount along with my technical acumen, and that's when I decided I probably should also equip myself in terms of the managerial stuff. So then I decided I wanted to pursue an education with a focus in terms of management. And I actually took the brave decision to step out of my job and then try for applying for colleges and write my exams for that. And I did get admitted into a school, which I'll come back to it again. But once I got my admission, I actually created my own nonprofit organization as well, which actually runs till since 2021. Yeah. So yeah, that was one gig before I went to my master's in management in France in edX Business School. I started, which is still running in India. Then I went to edX Business School, and I was admitted for a master's in management program in business management, which is a 3 year sandwich program with 1 year of work experience required. During my education, I was also offered a strategy analyst position. And during my gap year, I went on to do operations internship at a MNC chemical industry. And then when I was about to return to my final year, that's when I got to know about this exciting opportunity of doing a double degree in a different partner college. And then I got to know about U of A and Alberta School of Business, of course. And why not? Yes, then I'm here now.
And here we are. And what a squiggly, we like to call it a squiggly path, twists and turns to get you here, which is really interesting. I'd like to put a pin on, can you explain what EdHec is? What is this? Why are you in two different places? We don't get a lot of students from EdHec, nor do they stay here for a year. So for those who don't know what it is, give us a little bit more info on that.
Okay, so basically, EDEC is a college in France. It has in three different places. You take business management, it's in Lille. You take finance, it's in Nice, and Paris has its own perks as well. I was doing it in Lille, And so my course was actually a 3-year course where you do your first years full of basics, and then you have your gap year where you need to do a bit of your work and then you have your final year where you need to come and do your specialization. So either ways, I'll be getting 2 degrees. But then I realized that I come from a background where I did majority of my education in Asia, and I was actually I was fortunate to do a bit of my education and work in Europe. And I was really intrigued by the differences and different views that people had in Europe, because I was also in Belgium for a few months while working. And I really was more interested to know from different people and different perspectives and different parts of the world. And there was one reason why I wanted to come back to North America in specific. And when I was looking at the options that I could go through after my or during my internship, I noticed that I had an opportunity to do a double degree with a partnered institution, and UFA and edX as a MOU, I might say. So I was allowed to come here for a year and graduate more like a fast track. And I will be graduating with MBA over here and MIM from my home institution at Business School.
And what a global experience you've had. And I think it's really interesting on how focused you are on rounding out that global experience, which gives you such a neat diversity of thought, diversity of experience, and just adds a richness to you in your cohort. And I think that's a big part of our MBA and the diversity of experience from all around the world, which is really neat. Thank you for sharing and explaining that. Let's talk about this time, energy, and boundary management topic that we've been focusing on this week. It's probably a common one. It's not like it's the first time you would have heard it in class, but give us a bit of a background. You knew the title of class. What did you already know, or how had you experienced time management, energy management, and boundaries?
Yeah, so if I have to speak about that, the first job that I ever entered into my corporate life, that's the one where I was totally baffled. I had 50 tasks in 1 week that I need to complete. I was like, who does 50 tasks in 1 week, honestly? And then I had a call with my mentor at that time, was also happening to be my TL. She really helped me. She gave me the idea of taking the eye out from the smaller picture, taking a eye out, look at what is the bigger picture. 50 tasks is not the deal. What are the priorities? What is not the priorities? Put the non-priorities to the end. Take on the priorities. Work on them at the first. Have your schedule in chart and start with that. So I think that is the first time when I really got to know about it. Until then, even I was not a person who lived by schedules, but now I actually live by schedules and plans and whatnot. So I think I owe a lot to my first job, where I was actually having a lot of experience with these kinds of information.
That's really cool. And I think that, when we have team leaders that can impart really cool words of wisdom for us, and leaders that can just help us understand how to prioritize things, because we all go through things, there's the new app that we could use, there's a calendaring tool, there's all of these things, right? But you're now here, you're in Canada, you're way far away from where home is and then where your second home is. This is almost like your third home here in Edmonton. I'd love to hear, give me some examples of, what you do to kind of really manage your time. But then I'd love to hear maybe something that you tried but didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty old school. There were days when I used to just write it down, put a sticky note on top, and just say, this is what it is. And then I realized the papers were getting too much and it was getting nasty. So then I went on to, again, an old school idea of Notepad, and then from the Excel. And now, yeah, there are a lot. Like you can go with Jira for project management tools, which is like, you can also do that. There's a lot, but I usually prefer with Notepad, where you have it for each subject. You just mention it, you put the deadlines there, use that and update your calendar and keep getting your notifications, which also keeps putting your pressure levels high. But yeah, that helps, to be honest, to be on track. And in terms of not getting to the place that I want, even after everything that we have done in terms of time and work management, I think it's not in our hands, to be very honest. There were times when I did everything in my power and I actually didn't get to where I wanted to go. And yeah, it was difficult. But then I realized, honestly, there was nothing I could do with that. The process was right. I did everything in my hands, and I just go out with my friends. I tell them I tried everything in my hands. It didn't work out. The moment you went it out, it feels lighter. So I think that's one thing I usually do when things don't go my way, even after doing the process right.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. Tiffany went through this in class. Like there's only 24 hours in a day, right? And if we think about 8 of those at least have to be for sleep, and then we have to nourish our body and things like that. When you look at kind of what's coming up for you when it comes to like the MBA program, how do you know like when you've reached a limit? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so basically what I happen to do is I try to take some time off for myself. Doesn't matter what time of the hour it is. I try to ensure to have time for myself. It could be doing absolutely nothing, but I need the time of doing absolutely nothing to ensure that I'm in a sane state, otherwise I'm going to keep driving people around me insane. So I try to ensure that I have that around me. And especially in terms of MBA, I think the people have been really, very helpful. They have been in a journey where we go together, and I'm kind of shuffling between the first years and second year. So I have two sets of people who are kind of keeping me insane and on my toes. So yeah, I think that's important. Taking time off, just you could do absolutely nothing, but whatever makes you feel calmer and lighter at the end of the day, I think that's important to be you at the end of the day.
I want to go back and highlight something that you just said at the end of that. Of if I've done everything in my control and it still didn't work out, so there was stuff outside of my control, I still need to mention it. I need to talk about it and normalize it that happens. And it reminded me of a saying of if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And so manageable may not be still that you got it all done, but if I can talk about it with other people, and now you just talked about having a cohort of people that you can normalize this time management struggle through, and the fact that you probably can't get it all done. It's just, and everybody else is going to be in the same boat at the same time. So to allow for this, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And how do I help others talk about it? And how do I talk about it? I think is really important. We added
That's
this. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was think it's so true. Like everybody have their own time management and everybody have their own ways of looking at things. So it's really good if you could appreciate everybody's and take it with a pinch of salt and not try everything and then feel overwhelmed.
Yes. So that kind of leads to we added in a term in class of strategic neglecting. So if we can't do everything, we can't hulk our way through the MBA, not enough time in a day. We're going to have to strategically neglect. And you just said the exact same thing. So in your life, in what's important and urgent to you, what falls into the category of strategic neglecting?
Uh, Strategic neglecting. For me, strategic neglecting is something which is not really for me, which is in alignment with my long-term goal. So now that I'm actually graduating in 1 year, I think my education in tandem with my job search is going to be strategically what is required. But not everything that falls is going to be relevant to what I'm searching in terms of my job. And everything is not in relevance to what I actually want to learn, because there are different streams and different fields. I don't want to just put my legs everywhere and feel like I'm kind of struggling. So I know my area of expertise that I want to get into, and I want to kind of develop my expertise in that. And everything else is good to have, but it's not really required to have, and you don't have to really kind of overwhelm yourself with everything.
I love that link to goals. We talked about that in class to use your goals as a bit of a measuring stick. So if you have some clear goals, have you already identified a few things that don't align that on paper seem good, great learning experiences? Somebody else is going to find them important, but you're going to neglect them. Do you have an example?
Yeah, so there was event. I don't want to mention the name. If you want, I can actually. There was a particular networking branch and manage portfolio management and everything, but that was something that was beyond my reach. Like not beyond my reach, but not something I really wanted to do at this point in time. I could always come back and do it again, but right now it wasn't falling under the radar of my importance. I said it's okay. You can always come back to that later, but don't actually overfill your plate and kind of waste it. So I actually said, no, I'm not joining. My friends actually wanted me to be a part of it, to make it a team. I was like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm kind of out. Count me out. I'll help you get another person in the same interested field, but I'm out.
I'm just going to point out the battle against FOMO of what you just said. Your friends have come with us. This is a great opportunity. This is going to be great. And the fear of missing out, and actually reframing it into the joy of missing out, right? Being okay and actually having an optimistic look about missing out on something. Paul, I think you might have had a comment to add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to add into this. The fear of missing out is something that, I have found that as you mature through the career that you have, that begins to be less and less important, right? And I think I can even talk to, Tiffany goes to networking events for organizational development and learning and development, where from a prioritization standpoint, that just doesn't fit for what I'm looking at. And what I love actually about it is I can let Tiffany be the one to go. She can come back and share with me. And then what we can do is we can actually have dialogue and discussion. So with the, whatever it is that you missed out on, what I would encourage you to do is actually go back to your friends and say, tell me about it. Like, what was it like? And you can get all of the information without energy boosting into like having to go there and trying to kind of like hulk through everything to get in there. And I think that goes right into our next question about being able to hulk through the MBA. What came to your mind when Tiffany kind of brought this up in class? What came to mind when she said you can't hulk through the MBA?
So I was actually able to relate it because I wasn't actually able to hike through my first 2 years that easily. It was kind of hard, for sure. I need to admit it at this point because there were a lot of times when I was actually missing out a lot of things, when I was actually feeling lost, feeling overwhelmed, and anything. But I think the last 2 years has really helped. That was the one that has actually made me more wise in terms of how I should plan and how I should kind of navigate through the uncertainties of life. So I think hulking through the word might seem so fancy and you might want to try it out, but the point is you might not be a Hulk. You might be a Captain America. You might be a different Avenger. And the whole point is you need to know what works for you. So you might not have to be a Hulk to Hulk through, but you could just be a small Ant-Man and just uh, go through the small holes and find your way out. So I think that's important, knowing your strengths and sticking to them. And yeah, you can always work on your weaknesses, but do not always think your weaknesses is bigger than your strengths. Sometimes your strengths is what people are looking for. So do
Yeah.
embrace them.
I couldn't have put that better myself. Like, I think that it's so cool that you took like this theme of Avengers and say, like, yeah, the Hulk is the guy who, yeah, oh, so powerful. But, Iron Man offers his own kind of thought. The Captain America, you have all of these characters that can really help you. But at the end of the day, it's like really rely on your superpowers, which is really fantastic. So, we talked about energy management. I would love to hear, how do you fill your cup? How do you charge? How do you recharge?
Honestly, my energy is always pretty mid-level. Any day, given time, it's mid-level. It depends upon the kind of task that I'm doing that either rises it up or brings it down. So I kind of decide how I want to go to that particular day, how I want to kind of approach that entire day the previous night. So I kind of manage my energy mentally. I actually simulate the entire day in my mind and how I want to actually go through the entire day, how I want to power through the entire day with the limited energy I've got. I'm not a very high energetic person. I'm actually kind of, I feel I'm mentally old, I might say that. So I kind of ensure that the limited energy that I've got, I use it in the most rightful manner, not to waste it. So one thing that really helps is ensuring that I kind of simulate the entire day in my mind the previous night so that I know how much of energy I really need when I wake up and how I could actually bring that. Sometimes I just listen to music before a class to just keep me down, soothe me down. And sometimes I just take a longer nap and I feel it's a long day the next day. So it depends upon what kind of a day that is going to be. My previous day helps me to plan it.
I think if everyone was a high energy person, and on the surface, Paul and I can seem like high energy. We are when we need to be. We aren't always, but if we all were, can you imagine that world? I would go nuts. So to have people who are even keeled is the word that I would use for you, right? Nice and, like you said, medium energy level. I think that's really important actually to help balance other people out and keep other people calm that perhaps are having a bit of a high or low energy day. But if you are heading towards low, if we're dipping towards that E on the energy kind of fuel gauge, what are your kind of warning signs? How do you know you're
Yeah.
headed there?
I usually stay alone. I do not go out. And when I go out, I actually realize it very easily because I usually socialize with friends when I'm around. But when I don't do that, even when people are around me, if I'm silent, then I do realize that I'm kind of low on energy because I do not want to interact with anybody. I'm kind of trying to stay low, not interact, not participate. I'm just there because it was probably a mandatory attendance. Who knows? That could have been the reason why I was there. So yeah, those kinds of signs where I do not interact, where I do not where I do not kind of show my participation, and where I always kind of feel sleepy. Those are the signs that actually really mean that I'm kind of very low on energy.
Paul, what about you? When you're low on energy, how does that show up for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And for those of you who have had the chat, like I have a lot of energy most of the time throughout my workday. I think my poor family like experiences me probably at the dip of energy. But I did make a joke, and as a taller person and with a bad knee, I almost say like when my knee starts to hurt, that means my energy's starting to dip. And it's like I feel like maybe the person that's maturing in age that can tell when it's going to rain or something like that. That's what I kind of feel like. It's when I'm starting to feel it in physically, I think you definitely start to notice that mentally your energy is going down. And then also like I'll share like a feeling like you start to get frustrated, and anger is something that kind of comes up more often. And I found when I'm there, I'm like, ooh, I need to give myself a break of some sort. Or for me, like I'm a video game person, or I am let's look on the internet for new shoes or something like that that can kind of like replenish a little bit of that energy that I'm looking for. How about you, Tiffany?
Yeah, I lose seemingly the ability to ask questions. So I get really pointy and direct, which for those who experience me as a coach, maybe that's hard to believe, but whoa, man, I can get really, really kind of pointed. And I said this in class, I get really judgy and make a lot of assumptions. And generally speaking, that stays on the inside voice. I can recognize in my own head those judgments are coming. But if I'm really low on energy, my goodness gracious, sometimes that comes out of my mouth. And those are moments of really important self-reflect of what do I need to do in this moment, how do I need to recharge like right away, because now this is coming out into the world, and that's just not the way I want to show up. So I really need to pay attention, but yeah, it's pretty obvious. All right, we talked about time, we talked about energy management, and I don't think you can do one without the other. They're really important. But we also talked about boundaries, this container that we put around time and energy to protect it. And we talked about the fact that boundaries as humans, we're just not always great at setting them or holding them. So I'm curious, what about you? What boundaries have you either made in the past or in class maybe came to mind for you around this?
So I look at boundaries more like a security who's patrolling around the time and energy. So he ensures that you do keep up with the time, and you do ensure your energy is intact for what you have to do within that time. So what I actually do is when I'm planning my schedule prior, uh, I ensure that I put a boundary around it where I ensure that my phones will go off. I'll at least put it in silent. I'll ensure I'm not getting anything around at that time, and I'll also ensure that if there is any sudden impromptu plans, I'm going to say no. So it's something that I make up my mind to. You're not missing out on anything. This is your plan. You're sticking with this. There are times when it can be really tempting. So if you really want to break, then try to see if you can shuffle around, but ensure that that goes within that particular day. That's important. And I think I put myself accountable for this, because I cannot hold someone accountable to take care of me doing something. I'm kind of pretty old to ask someone to do it. I could have asked it when I was 10, but not anymore. So my parents are not going to do it, and my friends are going to get fed up, and I might lose friends. So I was like, it's okay. I'll bother you guys for something else, but not this. I hold myself accountable at the end of every day. I ensure that I answer myself truthfully and consciously if I have gone through the right direction that I have set for myself. And if it is a no, then I really have to have a strong discussion with myself on why you didn't do it that day. And was it really worth it? What are you going to miss because you didn't do it? And if it's fine, there's times that's going to be fine where it's okay, but there are going to be times when you really have to be hard and say no, it's not the right thing to do. You need to have a relook at how you're approaching things. So I think that's
Yeah.
the way I put my boundaries.
That's really cool. I think that all I visioned when you said it's like the security guards, I'm like, I imagine like Secret Service agents around Harish that's like, like warding off all like potential intruders or something like that. So, you explain that so well, and it's around like you are the boundary setter, and you're the person in the speaker for the Secret Service agent saying like, keep that one away. We don't want that one around here. So,
Yeah.
so given the discussions and the information in class. Is there anything that you're going to do to approach this maybe a little differently, or is it kind of status quo for you? What does that look like for you, Harish?
Yeah, I think what I'm doing is currently working well for me. There might be a time when I might not actually be able to do that anymore because right now I'm pretty low key. I'm just one person. I'm living for myself. So it's life is pretty easy and simple. But there might be times when life might get complicated, and that's the time when I'll come back and revisit the way I put my boundaries to myself. Right now, I just cover myself, and that's my protecting shield. But there'll be times when I need to let people in, and I need to set my boundaries around a different set of conditions, I might say. So that's one thing I will have to come back when the time is needed. But right now, I think life is good. Life is going calm and the way I want it. So I'm not going to touch it until things get messy, or at
I
least seems to
appreciate.
get messy. Sorry.
Yes, you're right. Life does have a seeming way of doing that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What I appreciate is your recognition that this is dynamic, that this is going to change. And I wanted to highlight something because we're going to head on to a lightning round here in a moment. But some of the tips and tricks that we talked about, the Eisenhower matrix, Pomodoro technique, our energy management, all of those pieces need a bit of a caveat in that what we talk about isn't going to work for everyone. And you've mentioned that. We mentioned it a few times, but there's some significant kind of neurodiversity even considerations on. There's some, the Eisenhower matrix has been out for a long time, but as we learn more and more about how people's brains differ, we also need to respect that you need to understand what works for you. You need to learn your best way of approaching time management. And if the Pomodoro technique of 25 minutes of focus and 5 minutes of rest, in fact, doesn't work for your brain style, that's okay, and there are other techniques out there. So I wanted to offer that caveat because I think we often look for, give me the answer, here's the thing, I'll try it, and if it doesn't work, it's my fault, and that's just not true very much from a brain
Yeah,
science
Yeah.
that's
perspective.
Yeah, and I'm going to add something, and then I'll let Harish add something onto that. It's not everybody has a set of Avengers to kind of protect them, or a set of Secret Service agents around them to protect them either, right? So it's we all approach this in very different ways. Harish, you were going to say something about that?
Yeah, I think there's no one size that fits it all. You might have a different
Mhm,
set of options for shoes, but then you need to figure out which shoe works for you. So I
mhm,
think, as you mentioned, there were different approaches. You select which works. If it doesn't, you're always good to come back and select a different one. That's it.
mhm. Appreciate that. All right, ready for a lightning round?
Oh yeah,
Let's do it. 3 quick questions, 3 gut answers. What is it about your career that has given you the biggest boost?
the people. I think it's a no-brainer. I think the people have really helped me, and it's going to be the people at different phases of life, of course.
Cool. What's one thing you wish you'd learned sooner?
Over the last 2 years, it's don't dwell too much on your results. Do not dwell too
Mm.
much on your results. Focus on the process, and the results don't go your way, but the process will always be the one that will take you there.
As Paul's pointing to the trust the process. All right. Service is something that's really important to Paul and I. So we're always curious to hear how service is going to show up for you in the coming week.
Yeah, so as I already told, unfortunately, I do not have any people who are doing it here, and I do not know it personally. But as I told you, I have one that's running in India, so I'm planning to contribute by being a part of planning and ensuring something happens in India over the upcoming weeks.
And actually, maybe you can just give us a little soundbite. What is your non for profit in India? What does it do?
It actually touch bases on various things. To start it off, while starting in 2021, we actually started providing food and shelter to the people on the streets. And over the years, we realized we actually grew to 60 people who are currently in the nonprofit organization, and everybody comes from different walks of life. We actually respected that a lot, and we valued that. And that's one reason why then we ventured into government schools and colleges, where actually the students wanted to have a career guidance. Or kind of an understanding of how things practically work. So we actually go there and we spend time with them. We have discussions, and especially in schools, we kind of try to make things as much practical as possible to let that stay with them and that they take it back home when they go. So yeah, those are the few things that we do.
Beautiful. Amazing. All right, Paul. Paul's random question.
All right, Harish, I've been thinking about this for 25 minutes, and there's so many questions in my head. You had said that you are a football player. You like soccer. I know we need to clarify this in Canada, but you like soccer. You have been in Asia. You have been in Belgium. You have been in France. You have been in North America. Do you have a favorite football team or a favorite football player?
Oh my God, you put me on the spot right now. Not all
I
these
know.
questions were addresses. So I'm going to say 10, and I think many people will relate to that. 10.
Okay. All right.
That's
10.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you get it?
No, I don't.
It's Messi.
Messi. Gotcha. That's what I thought. I was like, oh my God, 10. I'm like, are we talking 10 players, 10 teams? Messi. That's fair enough. He's not bad, He's not bad.
Oh,
So
he's completed the entire
he
football, to
has.
be honest.
He
So
has and has changed the sport, which is amazing.
good.
So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Thanks,
It's
Paul.
literally the only name I would have known. There's a joke on that I know nothing about football, and that's the one piece I didn't know 10, but the name at least. Oh man. Harish, thank you so much for taking time to walk us through really a subject that impacts, I think, everyone as a human, but certainly every single MBA student. And it impacts all of you in very different ways. And so I appreciate the wisdom that you've brought, the global perspective from different ways to do things, your own understanding of yourself, which is really robust. The little bit I know about you so far is that you have a good internal reflection practice, that you understand what you've been through, what has worked and what hasn't. So thank you for that. Thank you for the mental picture of the Avengers, and that we all need to be a bit of a different one, that we can't all Hulk things, and that's actually a good thing. The Secret Service agents, or I saw little soldiers kind of marching around a boundary, and that's really important. And just so many more tips and tricks. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tiffany. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me again.
All right, key takeaways. And like always, there's so many, but there's certainly one that stood out to me, and I'm sure there is one for Paul. So I really appreciated his way of talking about this. If it's mentionable, it's manageable. And time management struggles, energy management, boundaries, we often do that on our own. We often don't let people in. And we sometimes think that we're the only ones struggling with it, and that's just not true. And so if you can mention it, if you can say it out loud, it makes it more manageable, and it normalizes it for everybody else. So how can you do that? Paul?
For me, it was very early on in the conversation where he said he was starting his first role and there was a team leader that helped him zoom out. I loved that. That was really powerful. I think too many times we get caught in the nitty gritty, into the details, into the weeds, so to speak. But the ability to take and move out and like zoom that camera out to say like what is most important, even referencing back to the Eisenhower matrix that you talked about, Tiffany, in class. It's what's important and what's urgent, right? And how can we live in that like window to just really focus on those things? Sometimes we have to take that step back to be able to understand what those are. So I thought that was really cool and exciting.
Yeah, really brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. All right, another episode done. And next week we chat about unspoken brand. So catch you next time. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.